Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Search with Candour. My name is Jack Chambers-Ward and I'm coming to you from the beautiful Lowry Hotel here in Manchester the night after HiveMCR. It was a truly amazing event, 2 nights, like a pre-event mini conference with some talks and a live band and a panel. And then last night and all through yesterday was the conference itself with some amazing speakers, people like Alex Moss, Areej AbuAli, Jono Alderson, Dawn Anderson, absolutely incredible lineup. I joined a few panels and hosted a few panels, moderated a few panels, had a brilliant conversation with so many people, met people I've seen on LinkedIn and never had got a chance to have a conversation with. Huge shout out to Charlie Whitworth, Areej, and the whole team who made HiveMCR possible. It is a pretty spectacular event. It is a really warm, welcoming, beautiful event that makes you feel like you're really part of a community, you know. And obviously, you know, so many people go to these events around the UK and around the world, but it felt like something really, really special and really, really nice to be in the New Century Hall, which is this amazing venue with such an incredible lineup, but everyone was so accessible. You know, sometimes you go to a conference and it feels like the speakers are a bit separate from everyone else, kind of a bit more exclusive. This felt like everyone was just together. We're all a community. We're all hanging out together. And I got to catch up with friends and who I've not seen for a very long time. It was an amazing, amazing time. I'm going to spend this episode basically recapping my experience throughout HiveMCR. I'll give you little clips of the talks that I've filmed. There's been a few panels, some live show stuff, a bit of footage of me walking around Manchester, walking to and from the venue and things like that. So yeah, enjoy my recap of HiveMCR on this week's episode. And before I get to me recapping everything, this week's episode is sponsored by Trendos. So let's hear about Trendos and their new ChatGPT ad radar right now, shall we?
This week's episode of Search with Candour is sponsored by Ad Radar from Trendos. See who's buying ads in your AI search results with Ad Radar from Trendos, the AI search visibility tool for modern SEO teams. Trendos now tracks ChatGPT sponsored placements. This is the first tool to reveal which competitors are paying to appear in the AI answers your customers are seeing every day. A new ad channel just opened inside AI Search, and Trendos is the only way to see it. ChatGPT now has over 500 million weekly active users, and OpenAI has begun placing sponsor results directly inside AI-generated answers. They're not as banners, but as recommendations woven into the response itself. None of the tools marketers rely on today can see this. No ad library, no auction insights, no transparency report. Trendos changes that. Trendos continually monitors your tracked prompts from sessions, captures every sponsored placement that appears, and surfaces exactly who is advertising, what they're saying, and how often they show up. Data that simply doesn't exist anywhere else. The people asking ChatGPT for best CRM or top project management tool aren't browsing, they're making decisions. And Trendos makes sure that you know who's in the room when those decisions get made. With Ad Radar, you get every detail of every ChatGPT ad on every prompt you track. You get 4 data points extracted automatically from live ChatGPT sessions, so you always know who's spending, what they're saying, and how aggressively they're pushing their message. The first data point is impression share. See how often each advertiser's ad appears across your monitored prompts. Know who dominates, who's testing, and where you have room to compete. The second data point is ad title. Capture the exact headline each advertiser is using and track message and position shifts in real time. The third point is ad description. See every claim, offer, and hook your competitors are using. Compare ad copy across advertisers side by side in the tool. And the fourth and final data point is the final URL. Know exactly where those ad clicks are landing, whether it's a homepage, a specific product page, or a dedicated campaign landing page. You can understand the competitor's full funnel strategy. Use the discount code CANDOUR, that's CANDOUR, for 5% off any chosen paid plan, or click the link in the video description down below to try Trendos and ChatGPT Ad Radar for free today. Thank you so much to Trendos for sponsoring us here at Search with Candour. I'm back in Norwich and I'm going to give you a full recap of HiveMCR. Truly amazing event. Like I said, huge credit to Charlie, Rach, and all of the tech team. I know Tom and Pete, the videographer, photographer, those guys were brilliant as well. Really, really excellent event. But let's kick things off with what happened on Thursday. And it was a really nice pre-event meetup. It was a couple of talks actually, a panel and a live band, Token Honey, a local funk rock fusion band that were very, very fun. Did some covers and stuff like that. I'll put some footage of them later on. But we kick things off with a talk by the fantastic Nikki Halliwell. Nikki is really one of those super smart, brilliant tech SEO kind of people. Nikki runs Tech SEO North and is the director at Control-Alt-Delete Limited as well, and does brilliant work locally up in Manchester and does some great technical SEO stuff. And Nikki's talk was about if rendering is a new ranking factor. This is really interesting because I know a lot of us are talking about JavaScript, a lot of us are talking about the nature of LLMs and AI search and how everything is working, and basically talking about how a lot of things are holding modern websites back. And I'll get onto that later on in Jono Alderson's talk as well. Next up, we had a talk from Jess Atkinson, who is the head of organic at Embryo. And Jess talked about when the SERP is a lot, there's a lot of stuff going on, there's a lot of SERP features and things like that, how can you better understand your audience? So paying attention to things like the SERP features that are on there, the types of behavior that is happening on those SERPs, what kind of content you should be creating for that kind of thing, and being aware of what is happening on the SERP so you can better tailor your content for success. Then we had a panel, which was the Manchester SEO All-stars panel, which featured the aforementioned Nikki and Jess, plus Harrison Lemon and Ryan White, and was hosted by the queen of Manchester SEO herself, Dawn Anderson. And it was a really interesting kind of conversation. As a Southerner, as someone from Norwich, it was very much a conversation about the nature of the North and how Manchester's become a tech hub, and so many events are happening in the North as well. It was really quite interesting, quite inspiring for me as a bit of a Southerner in foreign lands up North to hear about what is going on the other parts of the country I don't often get to explore. Obviously, we go down to Brighton twice a year, go to London. I have friends in London and family in London I do visit as well, but I rarely get a chance to go up north. So it's very, very cool to hear about what is happening up north. And as I mentioned, we finished the evening with Token Honey, which is a local funk indie rock band fusion thing, four really nice guys who ended up accidentally chatting to, but I didn't realize it was them before they went on stage. And they did some of their own stuff. They did some originals, did some covers that were really fun Kylie Minogue, Madonna, Daft Punk mixed in with their original stuff as well. Shout out to three people who got everybody on the dance floor, because we're SEOs, we're all a little bit awkward, we're all a little bit, people have just arrived. I'd just been on a 5-hour train journey, and we were kind of like, will we get on the dance floor, all that kind of stuff, right? Well, we did eventually get on the dance floor, thanks to Sophie Brannon, Ali Moss, and Steve Paine. And really it was Sophie, Ali, and Sophie Gibson as well, who convinced people to get on the dance floor and actually start dancing. And then once we were on, Steve Paine from Systrix, absolutely killer dance moves. Shout out to Steve. And we were nerding out about the chords they were using, the music and stuff. Steve and I always nerd out about music when we get together and when we get to hang out. So that was very, very fun as well. We were predicting what songs and what mashups they were going to do, which was a lot of fun. And that kind of concluded Thursday, which was very, very cool. And we moved on to Friday morning. I've just got my notes here to the side. If you see me looking to the side here, I've got my notes here about all the different talks and stuff. And we kicked things off with the one and only Alex Moss from Yoast. Apologies, keep myself hydrated there. Yeah, we kicked off with Alex Moss, the principal SEO at Yoast and the director of Firecask, which is a Manchester-based agency, funnily enough. I didn't even realize Alex was so Manchester-based. And Alex is one of those people, along with people like Arnout Helmans and people like Jarno van Driel, where I feel like I learn something new every time I talk to Alex, or every time I see him speak as well. And this was all about agentic search and especially agentic commerce as well. What are agents doing when they're doing the buying, the technical priorities for your website to ensure that it is agent friendly, that it is able to be crawled and be discovered, products are being found by agents. So yeah, Alex is somebody I really, really respect and really trust when it comes to the technical SEO side of things. So having him talk about agentic is very, very cool. And having him talk about that sort of thing is very, very cool as well. Next up, we had the aforementioned Sophie Brannon, who is the co-founder and director over at Studio Hawk US. Shout out to Sophie, by the way, who is constantly traveling back and forth between the UK and the US. I assumed Sophie had moved to the US when I heard about her co-founding and becoming a director at Studio Hawk. She's doing like a couple of weeks in the UK, a couple of weeks in the US, back and forth. As someone in a long-distance relationship, that sounds pretty exhausting, but I know she's got a life here in the UK, partner, friends, family, all that kind of stuff. But credit to Sophie for just being brilliant all the time and being able to switch and being able to do that sort of thing. And I think the highlight of Sophie's talk for me, which was all about the content types that win in what Studio Hawk are calling the new consideration era, which is basically what we're seeing with a lot of AI search and a lot of LLMs. They are talking about the types of content, whether it's e-commerce, B2C, B2B, all this kind of stuff. They brought some real actual case studies, like credit to Sophie and the Studio Hawk team actually bringing real life examples and case studies rather than just a lot of the hypothetical conversation we see a lot when it comes to AI search. This was a legit actual, here is real examples of what we have done and how our clients are succeeding. I always appreciate that, especially when it comes to AI search, because I feel like so much of it ends up being hypothetical and experimental and all that kind of stuff. Having real world life examples was fantastic. And yeah, shout out to Sophie for that talk. Next up, the aforementioned queen of SEO in Manchester, Dawn Anderson, genuinely one of the smartest people in the industry, in my opinion. And I'll get on to this when we conclude with our wrap-up panel right at the end here. Dawn talked about how to understand the architecture of AI search. And I think this is really important because we are finding, again, so many hypothetical, so many theoretical kind of approaches to AI search. Actually understanding how this technology works, how grounding and how RAG and how all the generative nature of this kind of thing works can be a huge difference maker, in my opinion, to understanding it from a technological perspective. It's how you influences your strategy, if you see what I mean. That is a hugely powerful tool to actually understand what is going on in terms of AI search and actually understand what is going on when it comes to understanding how this technology works. And really, Dawn is the person to talk about when it comes to information retrieval and why retrieval, not generation, is actually the nature and the point of access and often failure for AI visibility. So being able to optimize your content for this sort of thing is hugely, hugely important. And understanding how this technology works is hugely important as well. Next up, before we get to our first panel of the day that I hosted, it is the one and the only Jono Alderson, who actually, of course, was on an episode with Dawn a few months ago, and we did our Future of Search, AI Search panel with Chris, Miriam, Jono, and Dawn. This was probably my favorite talk of the entire event. Jono has such a unique stage presence. He is ready to start fights and has such a high energy when it comes to it. And this talk was called The Browser Strikes Back. And I'll be honest, I hadn't read the description before I saw any of these talks. I saw the titles, but I hadn't read any in-depth sort of descriptions or seen any slides or anything like that. So I guessed The Browser Strikes Back is going to be a Star Wars theme, right? I was right about that, at least. There was a Star Wars theme. I know Jono was a big nerd like me. And it was all about basically how websites have basically become apps. And I think this is a really, really interesting conversation and not something I'd really thought about myself, is how the modern web is bloated and clunky and full of all this fancy JavaScript stuff that is doing a lot of work, but there is real kind of we should be building websites, not apps, was Jono's kind of briefing for it. There is a lot of stuff that's being pushed through because of old-fashioned things that we don't want to get rid of, old architecture, existing things. We're all in our kind of, I don't want to make any changes kind of stuck in our ways, essentially. And Jono gave some real examples of, this is 20 megabytes of JavaScript. Here is the same thing in a handful of lines of CSS. Here's how you can do this. And even if you want to make a website that looks like an app, you can do that really easily and really powerfully and really simply. And this was really interesting. He did make the joke of fire your developers, fire your engineers, fire your developers. Stop listening to engineers and developers when it comes to building this sort of thing. We need to be building websites, not apps. And for me, it felt like a bit of a revelation. If I'm going to be building a website in the future, I am going to have this ticking away in the back of my brain, being aware of the kind of things to simplify and streamline the modern web so we're not constantly worrying about how much JavaScript is in there and it's being super slow to load and everything is kind of built into this archaic architecture of the web. We want to make it cool, modern, and Jono had a brilliant talk about that. Next up was the first panel I hosted. It was the State of AI Search. Joining me was Gus Pelogia, who we'll talk about later on, Itamar Blauer, who had the next talk, and two guys I'd actually not met before, but had spoken to a couple of times in Ben McKay and Nick Handley. Really, really interesting, and huge credit, I think, to Charlie and the team for bringing such diversity of experience and thought and opinion to these panels, if that makes sense. I really appreciated the fact that we're all coming from different backgrounds, whether it's agency, in-house, SaaS, B2B, enterprise, all this kind of stuff. Itamar, Nick, Ben, and Gus all brought really interesting perspectives, and I think I did a pretty okay job of hosting. Charlie was very complimentary of my hosting skills, which was very, very nice, very kind. And to be, alongside these four great guys and talk about that, we did talk about what metrics you should be measuring, what KPIs you should be aware of, how are you handling and discussing AI search internally and with your clients as well. It was a really interesting conversation. I think it was really, really worthwhile. And a lot of fun. We then went on to the aforementioned Itamar Blauer, who was the head of marketing and growth at Whitepress. And Itamar did a really interesting talk about SERPs. So kind of a nice complementary thing to Jess's talk from the previous night. This was how to make sense of SERP volatility. And so many things, so many different tools. For example, the tool I've used is Systrix for their SERP screenshot and comparison thing. You can see what features are changing over time when it comes to certain keywords and certain searches. We are seeing really personalized, really volatile SERPs at the moment, and actually getting an understanding of what is changing and why and how things change is a really, really powerful way of better understanding what is actually happening on the SERPs. We then had a little lunch break, of course, very nice. I got to hang out with Gus and a few other guys, had a little chat with them. Very nice. New Century Hall, by the way, the venue has a food hall downstairs. Fantastic idea to have that and then have the event essentially catered by the venue itself. Very, very cool. Next up, we had Areej AbuAli, the one and only founder of Women in Tech SEO. And a very cool thing, Areej was actually joined by her two team members. So Erin Simmons, who is the managing director of Women in Tech SEO, and Himi, who I know is the social media manager there as well. Areej actually brought them out on stage, and we had little sofas that we did the panels on. So they were chilling on the sofas while Areej was doing her talk. It brought a really nice community feel to it because, of course, this talk was about community. And I know Areej and Erin have done a few talks about community. I saw Erin speak at Brighton just last month, and I've seen Areej speak at Brighton and MozCon and a few other places as well. How to build a brand that how to build a community that champions your brand. Excellent talk by Areej. Always really interesting to see her process and her roadmap and her thoughts behind where community is right now, what is happening with Women in Tech SEO, and how you can join, build, and kind of nurture a community to really help your brand as well. Next up, we had one of my highlights as well, the State of Brand Marketing and Digital PR panel. And again, I think this was particularly interesting. First off, shout out to the host, who I'll get onto later, Lisa Paasche, who was just absolutely fantastic. She's an old school OG SEO who is also a stand-up comedian and just an all-around lovely human being who I got to meet for the first time, having followed Lisa and seen a few talks of hers over the years and things like that, and heard the name a few times. It was amazing to finally get to actually meet her. And again, credit to Charlie, credit to the organizers for building a diverse range of people on this panel. Of course, we had Ashley Liddell from Deviation. We'll get onto Ashley in a minute. He did a great talk as well. Knows a lot about brand and digital PR. We had Shannon McGuirk, who talked about a lot of the digital PR side of things, has a lot of experience with what she does at Peach and the crew there. And Harry Clarkson-Bennett, who used to be the head SEO at The Telegraph, so bringing the journalistic and PR side of things as well. And for some reason, Jono Alderson was on this panel. And we kept making that joke. Lisa made that joke. A few other people made that joke, like, Jono, what are you doing on a digital PR panel? And it worked because of that diversity of thought and opinion, because of Jono being there and the rest of, the team, the panel being experienced in different ways. Jono bringing, I am very skeptical of digital PR, but here is why I have changed my mind, was really, really good. And Lisa did a fantastic job hosting as well. We then come back with the aforementioned Gus Pelogia, who is the senior SEO project manager at Indeed, talking all about enterprise SEO. And I really liked how Gus integrated a lot of other enterprise SEOs' thoughts and opinions into his talk. Actually interviewed and got stats and data and stuff from other enterprise SEOs into what is happening right now, and basically summarized investment and buy-in and having to secure resources, managing tickets and sprints and all kinds of stuff. And actually, I didn't realize I was chatting to Gus. Like I said, I had lunch with Gus at the event and didn't realize we were accidentally talking about his talk already. And really, really interesting to talk about, what people are doing at scale. When you think of a company like Indeed, those millions and millions and millions of pages of job listings in multiple different languages, how are they handling what they're doing? Really, really interesting. And fantastic. I always love watching Gus talk. He's always a brilliant speaker. Next up, Ashley Liddell, the co-founder and director at Deviation, good friend of mine, gave me a couple of shout outs when he did wrestling references in his talks, because we're wrestling buddies. And if you don't already know, I had Ashley on the show a little while ago, probably a year or two now, talking about search everywhere, which is the trademark that those guys have to describe the era of search that we're in at the moment. Integrating search, content, email, social, all this kind of stuff, and PR to bring everything together. Search is everywhere. And Ashley's talk was actually about how owning entities engineers discovery. I thought that was a really interesting point to have entities be a discussion here, and he brought up, footballers, and brought up products, and brought up companies and all kinds of stuff. How LLMs associate brands with other brands, people with brands, items with brands and people, all this interconnective nature of the entities of the web. Really, really interesting stuff, really piggybacking off what, people like Dixon Jones and a lot of other people have been talking about when it comes to entities. And fantastic stuff. Next up, we had Gianluca Fiorelli, again, one of the smartest people in the industry, and he was talking about workflows for engineering high-performance content. And building a content hub was really, really interesting to literally get basically a diagram of Gianluca's process and discuss how to guide your audience through your content funnels and how to create content hubs that support users throughout their journey in both traditional search and the AI-driven side of things as well. Next up, the final talk of the day was Steve Paine from Systrix. Steve is always a delight to hang out with and to chat with. He is the English language marketing manager over at Systrix, who have sponsored this show many times, as you might know already. And he actually presented a talk that Callum Lockwood did at Brighton. So the same data, it's part of Systrix's Sector Watch segment, and talked about what content is winning in a particular industry, in a particular sector. This was talking about women's fashion, and it was really interesting, highlighting some of the URLs, some of the domains, and discussing what informational content, what comparative content, what e-commerce content was working really, really well when it came to yeah, what was working, essentially. It really lays out a framework and gives you a blueprint for, okay, if I'm working in this industry, I should go and check out Sector Watch from what Systrix is doing and understand what is working in my industry right now. And yeah, huge credit to Steve getting up there and presenting something that Callum had already presented and had a couple of extra insights. And I believe they'll be publishing that data shortly after this goes live. So you can go and check that out as well. Last but not least, I hosted the wrap-up panel, which is a bit of a last-minute decision. I had a chat with Charlie, and he was like, mate, would you mind hosting the wrap-up panel as well as the AI search one? I was like, of course. Charlie was on the panel, so I was very happy to actually get a chance to pick his brain about SEO as well. It's not often, I get to sit down with Charlie and have that kind of conversation. He will be coming up on a upcoming episode of the podcast, though. Charlie and I are working on that already. But this was the aforementioned Dawn Anderson, Charlie Whitworth, Luke Cope, and also Ned Poulter. Luke and Ned I had never met before, but have known around in the industry, seen their faces, seen their work, followed them for a while. And this was a really, really interesting, again, diverse range of opinions, talking about what we enjoyed from the event, the kind of like wrap up of the event, and how we are seeing the state of search right now. How are we feeling? What are we excited about? What are we worried about? What kind of metrics, KPIs, reporting things are we discussing with our stakeholders, with our clients? And it was a great, conversation. Charlie kind of reiterated what Dawn said earlier and talked about how important information retrieval is, what he's learned from Dawn over the years. And yeah, it was really interesting to get Ned's perspective because Ned has been in SEO for a very long time, but left SEO for a few years and has recently come back. So it was nice to kind of pick his brain and get him involved in that as well. Then we had the after party and the comedy side of things, which was, of course, hosted by the aforementioned Lisa Paasche. Lisa did an amazing job kind of warming everybody up, getting everybody involved and, being the MC for the evening and introducing Katie Lingo, who is a fellow SEO and digital PR person as well. You may know them as Katie Thompson in SEO. And I was chatting to Katie just before she went on stage. And great little sort of like 10-minute opening set from Katie to really warm things up. And very weird and cool to see how many SEO people are also stand-ups and how that kind of how they kind of combine with each other. Next up, we had Rich Wilson, a comedian from a long time now, running sort of 10, 15 years or so, and has been in all sorts of stuff. The place I know him from is the Insane in the podcast, where he talks about mental health with comedians and creative people and stuff like that. And great set by Rich talking about, funnily enough, relating to us as SEOs and how we're all nerds in marketing and things like that. Very, very funny. And then headlined by the one and only Jeff Innocent. If you have not seen Jeff, I'll put some, obviously I'm putting clips up on the screen here. Jeff is an absolutely brilliant stand-up, really just naturally funny and a brilliant kind of Londoner kind of side. I felt like a fellow Southerner had finally arrived. And funny enough, I actually ended up chatting to Jeff backstage accidentally. I was in the green room for the speakers and the panelists and stuff, and I happened to be in there when Jeff arrived. And he now has a beard. Most of his like stuff online, he didn't have a beard. And he was saying to me like, oh yeah, people, when I blew up and went viral like 3 or 4 years ago, suddenly I was getting stopped outside. Literally, people were just stopping me in the street. It was absolutely mad. And funnily enough, there's a lot of parallels between Jeff and my dad. They were born in the same part of London. They're about the same age. Jeff used to play for West Ham United, the football team. My dad supports West Ham United. So I had a little bit of a bonding thing with Jeff Innocent in the green room before the comedy started, having a chat with him saying like, yeah, my dad grew up in this part of London and blah, blah, blah. We had a lovely conversation. Really, really nice guy. Really, really friendly. Happy to just kind of, chat about everything. And I kind of introduced what the conference was about and stuff like that. And he thought I was a staff member. I said, oh, no, I'm hosting one of the panels or a couple of the panels. I'm actually working in the industry. So he had a lot of questions about that, which was very cool as well. And his set was absolutely brilliant. People laughing out loud throughout, especially, again, shout out to Ali Moss, who was sat in front of me, who was absolutely cackling with only the way Ali can. And yeah, brilliant set by Jeff to close out the evening. Then we headed downstairs for an after party. Everybody sat outside. It was really nice. The sun was absolutely gorgeous. It was the most beautiful weather. And I left. I think there were some DJ sets and stuff happening as well. I know Charlie got on the decks and a few other things. But yeah, overall, a brilliant, brilliant event. Huge credit to Charlie, Rach, Tom, Pete, the AV team, the crew, everybody working there. Just a brilliant event all around, and a huge recommendation for me next year. If you do want to go and check out and head out to Manchester to go to HiveMCR 2027, I'd highly recommend it. Like, really reasonable ticket prices. It's very much been an influence for us when it comes to Search and Orange XL. And yeah, like I said, huge recommendation for you to go and check out HiveMCR in 2027. That's about it from me. I've kept it fairly short this week. Hopefully you enjoyed my little recap of HiveMCR and everything you can experience and enjoy. I think the talks were filmed, so they'll be going up at some point, and I'll share those when I can as well. And of course, I'll obviously put all the little links and stuff like that if you want to go and check out HiveMCR, go and check out everybody I've mentioned and all that good stuff as well. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you haven't already, please do go and check out our sponsor Trendos as well. Link in the description, and you can use the code CANDOUR, CANDOUR, for 5% off any paid plan. So go and check out this week's sponsor in Trendos as well. I'll be back next week with more conversations with fantastic SEOs, and I will see you next week. Thanks so much, and see you next week.